Hello, we are here still broadcasting from the lands of the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and if you have just joined us for this stream, welcome to Making It In Moreland, the Q&A with the Writers in Residence. I'm Izzy Roberts-Orr, again for anyone who missed us before, and I'm hosting today's session with two of the Moreland Writers-in-Residence. So in this session, I'm going to have a chat with Koraly and Millie, who are two of this year's Writers-in-Residence, about writing craft, their experiences of the program, and how they've been using their time to further develop their work. And we'd love to hear your questions for the writers at any point during the stream. It's open for your questions at any point. So yeah, no questions too small. Feel free to click that through to us at any point and chuck it in the comments, and we'll get to it when we can. So I'm joined here by writer, editor and arts worker Millie Bayliss, who's taken time out of her busy schedule as program coordinator at Emerging Writers Festival to talk to us about her writing practice and her participation in the Moreland Writers-in-Residence program, as well as Cypriot Australian writer and performer Koraly Dimitriadis, who has taken time out of her busy Saturday to talk to us about the Moreland Writers-in-Residence program. So thank you both again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really nice to see you both. Actually, it's a little odd still being in a box next to yours, but it's really lovely.
I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So interesting how humans just get used to things.
Yeah. So for anyone who caught our earlier stream, we heard excerpts from Millie's collection of essays, Swimming Lessons, and Koraly's fiction manuscript, Divided Island. If you didn't manage to catch that, you can go and watch that video back and have a listen to their work. But yeah, so here we are. I guess what I wanted to start off with was just having a bit of a think about, I think it's quite a special program, the Moreland Writer-in-Residence program. And I should say as well, I sit on the Moreland Arts Board Advisory Committee, which is a collection of volunteers. I like that. Sounds like we've been curated and put together into a delightful mix of humans who get together a couple of times a year and advise Moreland City Council on kind of arts engagement tactics, policies and ways that they can get the local community engaging in the arts and how they can support professional artists within the municipality and all sorts of things. And I'm really proud that Moreland has this program. I think it's quite a special thing for a local council to have this kind of investment in writers. I think a lot of the time funding writing is not always that sexy, is what I'm going to say, because the kind of the process itself isn't necessarily something that you can bring people in on. It's quite a solitary pursuit. Funding people to sit at a desk and do research and think deeply doesn't always seem that appealing to people outside of the craft. And by the same token, I think the outcome is not always as I think it's really important, but it's not always seen as being as kind of as exciting or something that you can point to and go like, look at this, it engaged this huge amount of people, or, you know, it's kind of, you have to have the right framework to look at it and see it as something valuable, and not all councils, I don't think, do that. So by that token, I'm really stoked that this program exists and that you guys are kind of in the second cohort of participants in this program. And part of that program is also that your work has to have an engagement with the local area, which I also think is really interesting. So I wanted to start off just asking you both, thinking about, you know, earlier on when you were first applying to this program, firstly, what it was that motivated you to apply and what you were hoping you were going to get out of the program, but also how that connection to Moreland played a part in your application.
Did you want me to go first?
Sure, that would be great, Koraly.
So I have lived in Moreland all my life. So when I saw the program, I thought this was something that I really wanted to apply for because I wanted to feel supported by the Moreland arts community and, to be able to have the space to write in Brunswick Library, which was where I was writing before COVID. And I actually used to work for Moreland City Libraries. That was the first job I ever got as a shelver. And I worked across all of the Moreland libraries for a number of years. So to be able to go into the library and write this story, which is, largely, set in the northern suburbs of Melbourne and Moreland, it's just like an amazing feeling and gave me it's like an encouragement. It encouraged me to keep going with the project and to see it through. So yeah,
brilliant. What about you, Millie?
I think in terms of what motivated me to do the residency, it just sounded incredible. I think anything supporting writers, especially with money, is a huge thing. We feel a working writer, it's obviously hard to get payment to help you give you the time and space to work. So that was obviously a really big motivating factor, and just having somewhere to go and work. I was going to be doing most of my residency at Siteworks down the road, which is really gorgeous. I had a big, beautiful studio with a lovely window that I think I got to use maybe 4 times before COVID turned out to be as big as it was, and I had to go back home, which in some ways was okay because of my chronic illness. I need to spend a lot of time at home anyway. So the amount of hours needing to spend sort of like at a desk in some ways was going to be a bit tricky, but they were always really flexible with that anyway, which was amazing. But yeah, it's just, I think it's a really great program for local writers to have that space and validation to work on their projects. And in terms of Moreland Place, I think everything I write is pretty close to home. I've tried to write things further away and find it really hard to do. And because a lot of my writing is quite intimate and domestic, a lot of that is about about my home, which is in Moreland and has been for quite a few years now. Although I go sort of all over the place, but even in that small extract that I read, it was very much the streets of Brunswick and Brunswick West, and I find it hard to not think about the place that I'm in when I'm writing anything, really.
Yeah, I think having said that, I don't think that there's a lot of programs like this one. I think that one other aspect though about funding writers is you get a lot of bang for your buck because that having time and space are the 2 key things, right? And maybe access to information is another one that can be really vital. But I'm interested, the Moreland Writer-in-Residence is also tied to Council's human rights policy. So it's specifically also looking at underrepresented voices within the publishing industry and looking at supporting writers who might not otherwise have the opportunity to work on their craft. And I'm interested for both of you in, how this opportunity is something that has allowed you to do something that you maybe otherwise don't have easy access to. Like what did this open up for you that you couldn't have done without it?
Well, I think for me, I was never kind of encouraged to be a writer. I was a computer programmer, and I came to the arts quite late. And so this program, together with other residencies like the UNESCO residency in Krakow, the Wheeler Centre Hot Jazz Fellowship, just all these little residencies that just give you a little bit more of they give you encouragement. They connect you in with different communities. you know, we were going to do a workshop as part of our residency. We didn't get to do that because of COVID. But, you know, just it just helps you like connect in with different communities that are interested in what you're writing about. And for me, like, there aren't that many Greek females getting published in Australia, you know, and to be able to, you know, write this feminist perspective of the Greek community is something that's very, very important to me. I mean, I first started writing this book when I was writing in secret in 2005. So, you know, it's been a really long journey for me. I've taken my time with this book, and every time I get something like this residency, or, you know, it just gives you that little bit more of a push to finish, you know. And I can say now, yeah, I've finished. It's the book's off to publishers now. I'm really happy, you know, and yeah, definitely, like yeah, it was really, really good to get this residency for me on many different levels. I'm very thankful, you know, and without these residencies, then, you know, these books aren't going to get published. I mean, a lot of these people from underrepresented backgrounds don't even have the money to be an artist. I'm lucky I was a computer programmer before I was a writer, and I had some sort of money to back me up. If I didn't have that, I don't know how I would be a writer as a single parent as well. It would almost be impossible. So having these sorts of things are just so helpful. I would encourage anyone from an underrepresented background to apply.
Did you have anything to add to that, Millie?
I pretty much agree with what Koraly has said. You know, I think obviously it's really important that underrepresented stories are being published and being read across the board and across all different sorts of genres and medias. So I think it's really great that that's explicitly mentioned in the process, and that more and more residencies are trying to make that really overt. Yeah, I don't,
particularly with migrant stories as well. Like, we want women to tell these stories too, not only men. And I feel like with the migrant communities, it's a lot of men that are telling these fictional stories, you know. So I'm talking specifically my culture. So, you know, having this kind of stuff is just invaluable. Sorry I interrupted you. Just wanted to add.
No, that's fine. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having time and space is what it takes, right? To, like, in the production of this kind of cultural artifact that we call a book, you know, the sheer amount of time and research and energy and redrafting that goes into creating that, is huge. So I'm wondering if we have any questions coming through. So let's have a look. I've just been brought some food, which I'm not going to eat right now. That's the noise in the background. Good-o. I'm interested in this question of place as well. We touched on that a little bit and how important that is to these applications. But I wondered if you had any kind of exercises or specific tips for writing place, something that you might do. So for example, for myself, walking is a really big part of my practice, and partly that's because it jogs my brain and helps me to focus in ways that I can find challenging. I'm not very good at sitting still, actually, at all, and so walking assists with that. But it's also a form of engaging with the world and a kind of noticing that really helps me to write place in an embodied way. And yeah, I'm curious, because for both of you, place is such an important part of the stories that you're telling. I'm curious if you have any kind of particular ways that you go about doing that as research.
Okay, I think same. I think all of my writing mostly gets done when I'm walking. It's a big thing for me. I write most of my essays sort of start on my phone as notes and just noticing things or working through things. And I think it does, as you said, Izzy, force you to pay extra attention to the world and your surroundings. And I really love that about walking and getting off my phone for as long as I can. And yeah, noticing as much as you can. I sort of, when I'm writing about other places that I'm not in the moment, I might do simple things like go on Google Maps and look, even so I can get that sort of visual again of what the place looked like, and try and get screenshots and go down different streets and stuff to try and get all of the details, which is really amazing because you can get quite great details now of anywhere in the world, really. So, and that can be a really good way of jogging my memory to write about different places again as well. Yeah.
For me, I'm a bit of a weirdo. I have different ways of capturing place. Well, some of my novels set in the 90s. So, well, a lot of it is. So a lot of these places like are different now. For example, La Trobe University, if I went there now, it wouldn't be the same. So I conducted interviews of people that went to La Trobe University during that time. For the scene set in Cyprus, I actually go and stay in Cyprus, and through my existing in Cyprus, catching up with people doing this, doing that, as I'm doing things, sometimes I get ideas in my head, and I always have something so I can write it down, like, oh, what if this happened in the book? And then I just write it down. I also find that if I like lie down and close my eyes and transport myself to that place, I can capture certain things. Also, as well, sometimes if I have an idea for a scene in a particular place and I can't get to that place, if I think about that place before I go to sleep, sometimes I dream about the place and it brings up other ideas as well. So I don't have a particular way in which I do these things. I just kind of, what I call is on the fly, which is basically like I exist, I ask, I move, I do things, and then stuff comes to me and I write it down. So, yeah.
Those are fantastic examples. I think I wanted to pull that out because that's one of the things that's really core for anyone who's looking at applying for this program in future for next year, perhaps, is to think about how place is relevant to your specific project. I think that was something I was really excited about these three writers in residence in 2020, was to see how deeply you all engage with the local area and how, you know, we could see that being located in situ and writing and being in that location would really benefit your projects and really extend upon those projects. So like, and Kamarra, who's not here, for example, was using the specific archives in the Moreland libraries for Faulkner as research for her play. So that's just something to think about, I guess, for anyone who's looking at applying in future. We've got a question here from Tana Mueller saying, what did you learn about yourself as a writer during the residency?
Millie?
What have we learned? It's just, you know, the residency's obviously been so different to what it was originally going to be because of COVID and everything else. I guess the main thing I've probably learned is that I'm a very slow writer and that's okay. And it's something I'm trying to give myself permission to be okay with. I'm not someone who can just smash out heaps and heaps of words every week or, you know, whatever. And that I take quite a long time processing my own ideas to myself before I can put them into any sort of form that makes sense. And these few months has sort of reinforced that, I guess, that I'm trying to respect the work of, you know, reading and thinking about things and writing notes about all the different things I'm reading or whatever, just as much as the actual sitting down and writing, because it all adds to the same, for me anyway, and the way that I work. And so, yeah, just trying to value all of it in the same way, I think is a big thing that I've been learning and trying to give myself permission to do a bit more during this time, especially when, you know, everything has been turned upside down, and yeah, it's not always easy.
How about you, Koraly?
I suffer from imposter syndrome, so every time I get one of these residencies, I learn that I am a writer because someone's paying me to write. So it gives you like that little bit of like a lift, and it gives you that confidence to go, you know what, you write your way, you do things your way, because every writer's got their own way. There's no right way, you know, and so it just gives you confidence to keep doing what you're doing in the way that you're doing it, and that you are a writer, and just keep going because someone's paying you to be a writer, so you may as well do it. So every time I get a residency, that's what I learn.
Definitely helps. You take yourself more seriously, right?
Yeah.
And your work more seriously, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like I can relate to that experience, but in a slightly different way, where I apply for things expecting never to get anything, and then actually really freak out if I do get something, because then I'm like, I have to actually do this now, and it's like, oh, okay, gonna be a poet then. All right, I guess I have to work out how to do that a bit.
Yeah, because there's so many things you could apply for, and it's so like you apply for 50 things, you might get like 1 or 2, you know. So when you get them, it's like, oh, okay, this is serious now. I've got to do it, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's good to. Well, it's always comforting to know that everyone feels that way, I think. And yeah, I think that point about slowness too, Millie, is a really good one. That's I mean, I'm sure I have learnt a lot of lessons about slowness through living with chronic illness as well, which you wrote a beautiful article about that I encourage folks to read. But in the creative process too, learning that slowness and learning to just kind of accept that your process is your own process. And as you say, Koraly, only you write the way that you write. And residencies and time and space to sit with that and sit in sometimes the discomfort of that, of not knowing, and sit down and just embrace the uncertainty of it is really valuable. And it doesn't get easier, but it's incredibly valuable. I'm curious then, thinking about applications and imposter syndrome and all of these things, because I find it interesting that both of you also completed a hot desk fellowship at the Wheeler Centre with both of your projects. And I'd recommend that to anyone watching as well. Every year, the Wheeler Centre get a lot of applications, I have to say, and I've been part of reading those in the past, and they're very high calibre applications that they get. But a number of them are awarded every year to a bunch of fantastic writers who get to have time and desk space also, and a stipend of $1,000 supported by the Readings Foundation. And so, you know, that's it's another residency kind of in space with some money to give you some time to focus on it. Which both of you completed before this residency as well. And I wonder, for your applications, do you have any tips for people who are looking to apply for a residency?
Yeah, I think every time you do it, it gets a bit easier. So like I definitely found applying for this, for example, was easier because I'd thought a lot about my project for the hot desk fellowship and so on. I think it's the standard, I would just say the standard things of making sure you read the criteria a million times before starting your application and really see what they're looking for, because if you actually have a look, you can sort of figure out what it is that they want. And so I would normally make dot points of each specific thing that they've said, and then try and make sure I'm addressing each of them in a specific way. So just like having a look at the past recipients and what their work was like, have a look at what they're looking for, and also just do it. Like I have so many friends who I keep trying to convince to apply for this or other things, and they think they're not ready yet or whatever. And I think if you're writing anything, it's really good practice to just apply and have a go. And yeah,
I would agree. Like just the more you do it, the more experience you get. I would look at the criteria and answer the criteria in your way. Don't feel like you have to be like all fancy and whatever. Just answer it in your voice, honestly, like the person's in front of you and you're talking to them, you know, and just keep applying and you'll start getting stuff. You'll learn, and you know. And also, I did a short like session on grant writing that even though we're talking about applications for residencies, I feel like it's still applicable, and that really helped me understand the process of applying for things. There's a few around, and it's like you know, a 2-hour course, 2-3 hours. I think there was one done through Moreland recently in the last few weeks, and they're very good too, to help you understand the process of applying for things.
Yeah, grant processes are definitely a specific beast that I've learnt. There are things you can, the same way that you can learn to write an essay and there's a craft to it or something, there's a craft to writing applications in a way, and they're not for everybody either. And it's good on the other side of that as well to see places make more of an effort to ensure that the process is one that is facilitated to ensure that they're getting the applications that they want to get and that it's an accessible process. But yeah, it's definitely...
Sorry, Izzy.
Go for it, Millie.
Oh, I was just going to say, and ask, I think my biggest thing would be to ask someone else to have a read of it first if you can. Anyone watching this, I'd be so happy to read over your application if you want. Like, just like someone, you know, I think it's always so helpful, especially if you're new to the, you know, writing community. It's really helpful to have someone else look over it with their own fresh eyes to let you know if you're saying what you think you're saying.
I think time in that vein is also really useful. I'm like definitely a last minute application guy, which is I guess good to acknowledge. And being on the other side of it, I'm always like, oh, all these artists with their last minute applications. I'm like, yeah, that's me. But I think it, like, to that point of making the dot points, saying in your own voice, all of those things I find a lot easier to do if I write, just kind of like smash out a rough draft and then leave it for a period of time and come back to it. Because actually, even if every single day in the month leading up to a deadline, I think about my application, it's not the same as getting it on the page, which, you know, we know as writers that every idea is the best idea you've ever had until you write it down and actually see how it works on the page. But yeah. Anyway, we are going to wrap up in a minute, but I would love to close just asking you both for any recommendations of, I won't say reading recommendations. They can be cultural artifacts of any kind that you've been enjoying lately. And yeah, also where people can find more of your work if they loved what they heard today.
I'm reading, I just finished reading Paulina Simon's Tully because it really inspired, this is the second time I'm reading it because it really inspired my novel. So yeah, and I'm also just, now that I've just finished this draft and I'm emerging, I'm just kind of like having a rest from words at the moment and just drifting here and there in terms of books. But yeah, if anyone wants to buy my books, Love and Fuck Poems, and just give me the pills, they're available from readings or from my website, koralydimitriadis.com.
Nice. I've also, I have like a growing reading stack by my bedside that I haven't been able to get to as much in the past few months while working a lot. So I've mostly been reading things online lately, I guess, which I love. And I think it's a really good way, especially to see other emerging writers work and what they're up to. You said that I had a piece in Kill Your Darlings. I really love them and all of the work they're putting out at the moment. I think they are a really good place online, sharing a lot of really amazing work, particularly essays, which are my favorite. I love, I'm thinking like EWF has just launched a whole bunch of digital publications that you should go look at. The Liminal publication, they're releasing pieces every day that all look amazing. We have our own one that we just put out with lots of really cool work. So yeah, I would recommend just hopping around there and reading what's going on, because there's lots of great stuff. Fabulous.
And how can people find your work, Millie?
Oh, sorry, I'm choking a little bit. It's on a few places online, KYD, Overland. If you follow me on Twitter, where I overshare a lot, I try to post things there too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today on the interwebs to talk through your projects, and it was wonderful to hear some excerpts of both of your work. It's been really exciting to know that you've been developing that this year and had the time and space to do that, both when you were able to go to Siteworks and Brunswick Library and still working away at it at home. And for anyone who's watching today, I highly encourage you to sign up for the Arts Moreland newsletter, which you can just Google and find on the web, which is the best way that you'll be kept up to date with when the Writer-in-Residence program opens for applications again. And it's likely to be in October, so keep that in your calendars as well. Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.